Picture this: a duke wrapped in fog and silence, walking into an orphanage like he owns the world, because he does. But then a little girl looks up, points to the brooch on his chest, and whispers, "My father had a brooch like that." So tell me, why did the duke freeze? What kind of secret can turn an untouchable man into stone? And what happens when the child you never knew existed is the key to the one woman you were never able to break? Was she hiding or surviving? And if the truth comes out tonight, will the duke lose his title or lose his soul? Stay with me, because this story gets dangerous. And before we begin, hit subscribe, smash like, and share this video with someone who loves scandal, forbidden love, and shocking twists, because you're about to witness a duke's empire crack, one heartbeat at a time. Fog lay over London like a hush laid across a scandal, soft, cold, and impossible to argue with. It seeped into the seams of carriages and the cuffs of gloves, clinging to stone facades and iron gates, as if the city itself wished to hide what it had done. Duke Elias moved through it, as though it were nothing more than a curtain drawn for his convenience. His presence did not ask permission. It took space, and the world, shopkeepers, footmen, even men with titles, made room without understanding why. The orphanage stood at the edge of respectability, where soot-stained brick pretended to be pious, and poor children learned early how to swallow hunger without making a sound. The place smelled of boiled linen, cheap soap, damp wood, and the faint bitterness of coal that never truly warmed. Inside, footsteps softened as if the corridors had been trained to fear interruption. Even the air seemed cautious. Elias did not come for charity. Charity was what people performed when they wanted applause. He came because his name had begun to circulate in the wrong mouths, whispers slipping between teacups, laughter turning sharp behind fans. There was talk of an irregularity in the records, a missing donation, an incident swallowed too quickly. The sort of rumor that did not kill a man outright, but bled him slowly, drop by drop, until the public decided he deserved it. The matron greeted him with a curtsy so deep it bordered on desperation. Her voice tried to become silk, her hands tried to become harmless. She spoke of gratitude and blessings, of the noble duty of the great to uplift the small. Elias listened the way a judge listens, patient, impassive, already deciding. He saw the tremor at her throat when she swallowed. He saw the way her gaze flickered. Once, toward the stairwell as if something upstairs might fall. He wore perfection the way other men wore coats. Dark wool cut to authority, boots polished to a hard shine, gloves fitted like a second skin. And on his lapel, pinned with deliberate precision, rested the Ashbourne brooch, an heirloom of his line. The metal was cold even through fabric, a subtle weight against his chest, a crest worked in gold, a stone set like a captured drop of night. It was not merely decoration, it was a claim. As he moved deeper into the building, he felt a peculiar resistance, as though the walls recognized him and disapproved. Children paused mid-breath when he passed. A small cough died instantly, smothered by fear. Somewhere, a spoon clinked against a tin bowl, one brief bright sound that made the silence afterward feel even more deliberate. Elias's fingers drifted to the brooch without conscious thought, brushing it once, as if confirming it was still there, still his, still unchallenged. The gesture unsettled him. He did not have nervous habits. He did not reach for reassurance. Yet something here was tugging at a memory he kept locked away, wrapped in pride and bitterness. A woman's voice, too fearless for her own safety, the scent of crushed flowers on warm skin, the taste of a name he refused to speak aloud. He had buried that chapter years ago. The way powerful men buried inconvenient truths, deep enough that society could stand on top of them and call it virtue. The matron continued talking, words spilling faster now, as if speed could outrun consequence. Elias let her speak. He watched. He waited, and then, soft as a shadow, bold as a blade, a child stepped into the corridor ahead of him. Small, still, unafraid, her eyes lifted and fixed on his chest with unsettling certainty. Not on his face, not on his title, not on the threat in his posture, on the brooch. A tiny hand rose, pointing with the calm of someone naming the obvious, and in a voice too steady for a place like this, the girl said, "My father had a brooch like that." The words did not land like a child's curiosity. They struck like a verdict. For an instant, Duke Elias forgot the matron, the corridor, the damp breath of the building. The fog outside might as well have entered his lungs. His composure, so carefully built from discipline and disdain, held, but only in the way ice holds when a crack runs through it. Silent, treacherous, inevitable. The girl's finger remained lifted, steady as a needle above skin. Her gaze did not flit or falter. It was the stare of someone who had learned early that fear was a luxury for people with safety. The matron reacted too quickly, too loudly, as if volume could erase meaning. "Maya," she snapped, and the name sounded like a leash yanked hard. "Apologize at once. You mustn't trouble His Grace with nonsense." Maya turned her eyes toward the matron, and in a single look, refused her. No tears, no pleading. A small chin raised, the quiet arrogance of the truly cornered. "It's not nonsense," she said, and her voice carried a crisp certainty that did not belong to an orphanage. Elias heard himself speak, but the voice did not feel like his own. It was lower than courtesy, sharper than kindness. "Why do you believe that?" The matron attempted to fill the space with laughter that did not reach her eyes. "Children imagine all manner of things, Your Grace. They cling to stories." Let her answer. Elias did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Authority lived in the calm with which he denied others the right to continue. Maya's attention returned to the brooch, and something like recognition tightened her mouth. "It was on his coat," she said. "Right here." She touched her own chest with maddening precision. Not a cheap pin. Heavy, cold, with a mark on the side, like a tiny bite. Elias's fingers curled inside his gloves. There was a mark, a minute flaw in the metalwork from an old fall, a private imperfection he had never repaired. No one outside the family should have known. No one. The matron's face drained, color sliding away as if the truth had pulled it out by the roots. "Enough!" she hissed. "You will go back." Maya did not move. "He smelled like rain and smoke," she continued, as if the matron were furniture. "And he had a ring that hurt when he tapped the table. He laughed once and then stopped, like he remembered he wasn't supposed to." Elias's stomach tightened with a sensation he despised, something close to alarm. Children did not invent details that specific. They repeated them. He bent slightly, not in gentleness, but in focus, bringing his voice down to her level, like a blade lowered to the throat. "What is your father's name?" Maya's lips parted, then closed. A pause, brief, weighted, like a door being tested before it was opened. "I don't know," she said at last. "They wouldn't tell me, but my mother did." The matron made a sound, half prayer, half panic. "Your Grace, I beg." Elias's gaze cut to her. "You will stop begging. You will start explaining." The corridor felt narrower. The damp air grew colder, as though the building itself anticipated violence and leaned in to listen. Elias could sense the invisible machinery behind the matron's fear. Ledgers, letters, visits made at odd hours. Money passed quietly, threats wrapped in politeness. Maya watched him as if she were measuring whether he would be another liar in fine cloth. "My mother said," she began, and her voice softened only because the words were heavy, "that she ran because of a duke." Elias did not blink. duke. Maya's eyes lifted, unwavering, cruelly clear. You, she said. She said your name. The corridor held its breath. Elias did not recoil, though something in him wanted to. Not from the child, never from a child, but from the simplicity with which she spoke his name, as if it were an ordinary thing to carry on a tongue. His title had always been a wall, his reputation a locked gate. Yet here was a girl in worn cloth, opening it with 2 words and a steady stare. The matron's hands fluttered once, useless as dying birds. "Your Grace," she whispered, and the plea in it was not for mercy. It was for silence, for the world to remain in its proper order. Elias's voice stayed calm, because calm was how power struck without warning. "Tell me what she means. She can't." The matron swallowed, and the sound was loud in the narrow hush. Children take scraps of overheard conversation and weave fantasies. We do our best, but... Maya's gaze cut through her like a knife through lace. "I'm not a baby," she said. "I don't make up names." She turned back to Elias, unblinking. "She said you were the kind of man who could ruin someone without touching them." Something cold slid under Elias's ribs. Not because it was untrue, because it was precise. He studied Maya's face as if answers might be written in the angles. There were traces that unsettled him. The set of her mouth when she refused, the stubborn lift of her chin, the sharp intelligence that did not soften for comfort. And beneath that, a shape of familiarity he did not want to see. "Your mother," he said, each word measured. "Where is she?" Maya's mouth tightened. "Gone. Dead." "I don't know," she said. And for the first time the steadiness flickered, not into tears, but into fury. "They said she left me because she wanted to. But I'm not stupid. People don't leave like that. People get pushed." Elias's attention snapped to the matron. "Records," he said. "Her intake, any note of her parentage, every document you have." The matron's eyes darted, hunting for an escape that did not exist. "Those files are delicate. Many children come without proper. Then you will show me what you do have." His tone sharpened by a fraction, and the air around him seemed to harden with it. "Now." The matron hesitated, the smallest pause, yet it screamed of obstruction. Elias heard, in that hesitation, the clink of coins exchanged in secret, the rasp of a threat delivered politely, the soft cruelty of the aristocracy. Not a fist, but a pen. As the matron finally moved, Elias remained with Maya. The child watched him as if daring him to deny her again. He looked down at her and found himself thinking, absurdly, that she stood like a small duelist, too young for the stance, too certain to abandon it. "You said your mother spoke my name," he murmured. Maya's expression tightened, as though she were tasting something bitter. "She didn't say it like people here say it," she replied. "Not like a bow, like a curse, like she hated you and missed you at the same time." A memory rose, unwanted and vivid. A woman in a candlelit room, eyes bright with defiance, refusing to lower her voice just because men with power preferred women quiet. A laugh like a challenge. A hand pulling away when he tried to claim what he had not earned. The scent of crushed white flowers and rain on warm stone. She had never been soft. She had never been safe. He had loved her for it and punished her for it. The matron returned with a thin folder pressed to her chest, as though it might protect her. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. "This is all, Your Grace, truly." Elias took the folder. One glance told him what she had tried to hide. Pages missing. Ink scraped out. A name partially blotted, as if shame could be erased by smearing it. Maya leaned in, eyes narrowing. "See?" she said quietly. "They don't want you to know." Elias closed the folder with controlled force. "Someone has been here before," he said, not a question. The matron's lips parted, then sealed again, fear stitching them shut. Elias turned, brooch cold against his chest, and the fog outside suddenly felt less like weather and more like a warning. "You will not speak to anyone about this," he told the matron. "Not a soul. And if you have already been paid to keep quiet, understand this. Whoever paid you cannot protect you from me." He looked down at Maya once more. Her gaze did not soften, but it held, stubborn and accusing, as if demanding a promise. Elias gave her none aloud. He simply said, "Stay where you are." Then he left the corridor with the folder in his hand and a storm waking in his veins. Because somewhere in London, someone had rewritten the truth, and only a man with a duke's reach could tear the ink back open. Night received Duke Elias without warmth. His townhouse stood immaculate behind ironwork, windows lit like restrained jewels, as if even flame had been trained to behave. Inside, the air carried leather, beeswax, and the faint sting of brandy, comforts arranged with the precision of a man who could not afford to be surprised. He did not remove his gloves. He crossed his study and laid the orphanage folder on the desk, as though placing evidence before an executioner. The papers looked harmless, thin and ordinary, yet they pulsed with sabotage. Torn edges, missing pages, ink blurred into deliberate obscurity. Someone had touched his past with confident hands. Elias rang once. The sound traveled through the house like a command, and his men appeared quickly. Not servants, but instruments, well-dressed, silent, built for discretion. They did not ask why. Men who survived beside a duke learned that curiosity was a kind of suicide. "Names," Elias said. "Everyone who has visited that orphanage in the last year, donors, inspectors, clerks, anyone who walked through those doors and left satisfied." One of them, grey, sharp-eyed and tireless, inclined his head. "And if the names are missing, Your Grace, then you will find who made them missing." He turned the folder toward them. In the lamplight, the scraped places shone like scars. "This is not neglect. It is a hand trying to erase a person." A second man, older, with the polite stillness of someone who had learned how to listen in rooms where ruin was negotiated, spoke softly. "If it concerns parentage, the matter may not be charitable." Elias's mouth tightened. Charity is a curtain people hide behind. Pull it back. He moved to the window, looking out at the street where fog pressed against the glass as if eavesdropping. Somewhere in that grey thickness, London continued to breathe. Carriages rolling, laughter spilling from clubs, whispers being traded like currency. He had built his life on control, estates managed, alliances maintained, enemies kept at a respectful distance. Yet one child's sentence had reached through years and struck him in the chest. The brooch felt colder than metal should. "Who benefits?" Elias said, more to himself than them. "From my name remaining spotless." Silence answered at first, then Grey's voice, cautious. "Your cousin, Lord Harrowmont, has been eager to sit nearer your influence. He has debts and ambitions. A scandal attached to you could reshape certain inheritances." Elias did not flinch, but something inside him sharpened. Harrowmont smiled too often. He drank like a man trying to drown fear. He spoke of family honor with the enthusiasm of someone who meant to profit from it. "And the matron," Elias said. "She's terrified. Not of me, of someone who has already been there." The older man nodded. It would not be the first time an institution was bought quietly. A donation here, a warning there, a signature forced without ink stains. Elias's hand closed around the edge of the desk. "I want the records restored. I want the missing pages. I want the truth as it was, before someone decided it was inconvenient." He turned from the window, eyes dark, voice lowered into something that did not need volume to become dangerous. If a man used my name to threaten a woman years ago, I will drag him into daylight with his own hands tied. Gray hesitated, then offered what sounded like caution but was really foresight. If there is a child, Your Grace, and it becomes known. Elias's gaze snapped to him, and the room chilled. If it becomes known, London will do what London always does. It will feast. He picked up the folder again, not gently, and the papers rustled like restless wings. So we will starve it. We will move first. Outside, a distant bell marked the hour. Inside, Elias felt time shifting, gears engaging. Whatever had been buried was not content to stay underground. Someone had stirred it. Someone had gambled that the Duke of Ashbourne would not look too closely. They had mistaken his pride for blindness. "Send word," Elias said. "No one approaches that orphanage tonight but us." "And the girl?" the older man asked. Elias's eyes narrowed, and for a moment the mask of ice cracked, not into softness, but into something more frightening. Possession edged with guilt. "She stays alive," he said. "Unharmed, untouched." He paused, as if weighing a truth he refused to name. "Because if she is who she claims to be," he added, "then someone will try to take her from me long before I decide what to do with her." Rain fell with the patience of a punishment, steady and cold, turning the streets into dark mirrors where lantern light shivered and broke. London sounded different in weather like this. Wheels hissing over wet stone, distant voices muffled into ghosts, the river breathing somewhere beyond the buildings like a beast too large to chain. At the orphanage, the matron's panic had ripened into hysteria. Her mouth formed prayers, threats, excuses, all at once, but none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was the absence where Maya had been. A bed too neatly made, a corner too quiet, a small space in the world that had been stolen. Elias did not ask whether the child had wandered. He did not entertain hope as an explanation. Hope was for men who could afford to be wrong. He moved through the rain as though it owed him passage. His coat grew heavy, water threading into the seams, yet his stride did not shorten. His men fanned out, silent shadows with purpose, following what others would miss. A scuffed heel mark in mud, a torn thread snagged on a nail, the faint smear of wax near a gate. Seals and signatures, always seals and signatures, the polite language of cruelty. The trail bent away from main streets into narrower lanes, where the city forgot to pretend it was civilized. Here, the air stank of damp brick and old refuse, and the fog hung lower, thicker, as if it wished to smother witnesses. Elias's jaw tightened with each step, not from fear, but from a rage he kept caged because it was too enormous to release without consequence. At a corner where the gas lamp flickered, Gray paused and pointed to the ground. A small wooden toy lay broken in two, soaked and abandoned, as if someone had snapped it in irritation. Elias's throat tightened around something sharp. He did not know the child, not truly. Yet the idea of her being dragged, silenced, treated like an inconvenience, treated the way her mother had been treated, made the world tilt. The house they found was plain, the sort of place men used when they wanted no names attached. Its door looked ordinary. That was the point. Ordinary hid sins better than grandeur ever could. Elias did not knock. The door gave way under force, a brief violence swallowed by rain. Inside, the air was sour with sweat and cheap spirits. A man turned, startled, reaching for something that might have been a knife, might have been courage. Elias crossed the distance with a terrifying calm and removed the idea of resistance from the room. There was a dull sound, fist into flesh, body into wood, and then only the rain again, tapping at the windows like a metronome. From the back, a voice, small, furious, cut through the dark. "Don't you touch me!" Elias followed it as if it were a thread tied to his ribs. In a cramped room, Maya stood pressed against a wall, hair disheveled, cheeks smudged, eyes bright with defiance. A man held her wrist too tightly. Maya bared her teeth and sank them into his hand with vicious precision. The man yelped, and she used the moment to wrench free, spitting as if disgust could cleanse her. She looked at Elias without gratitude, without softness, only accusation sharpened by survival. "You took long enough," she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her breathing. Something inside Elias cracked, a soundless fracture he refused to acknowledge. He held her gaze as if it were a duel. "Are you hurt?" Maya lifted her chin. "No." The simplicity of it did not reassure him. He turned to the man on the floor and crouched, retrieving what had fallen from his pocket in the struggle, a scrap of paper sealed with red wax. The crest pressed into it was unmistakable. Clean lines, arrogant symmetry, a mark he had known since childhood. Ashbourne. Elias stared at the seal until the edges of the room seemed to sharpen. The rain outside kept falling, indifferent, while a colder truth formed in his hands. Someone with his blood, or his name, had ordered this. And now the game was no longer about rumors. It was about ownership, about erasure, about a child who had looked at his brooch and turned his life inside out. The carriage cut through the wet streets with a ruthless steadiness, wheels slicing puddles into silver arcs. Inside, the air was close with wool and rain, the faint metallic scent of wax still clinging to Elias's gloves. Maya sat opposite him, small body held rigid, eyes fixed forward as if she were daring the night to accuse her of weakness. Elias said nothing. Words felt dangerous, too easily softened, too easily turned into promises. He had spent years making language a weapon. Tonight, it trembled on the edge of becoming something else. At his townhouse, warmth waited behind polished doors, beeswax, firewood, the clean bite of soap. Yet even comfort felt like a trap, too genteel for what he carried in with him. A physician was summoned discreetly, the sort who treated bruises without questions. Maya endured the inspection like a soldier, jaw set, refusing flinches that might be mistaken for surrender. When the physician finally withdrew, Elias remained in the room with the child and the crackle of the hearth. He studied the marks left by the world on her, scrapes, damp hair, stubborn pride, and felt something unfamiliar press against his ribs. Not tenderness, not yet, but a fierce irritation at the universe for daring to touch what might belong to him. Maya broke the silence first. "If you're going to send me away," she said, "do it now. Don't pretend." Elias's gaze narrowed. "I do not pretend." She tilted her head, unimpressed. "All men like you pretend. You pretend you don't care, so no one can make you." The truth of it stung because it was spoken by a child. Elias opened his mouth to answer and stopped. The air shifted, as though the house had sensed an approaching storm. A sound came from the entry below. Not loud, not clumsy, but decisive. Footsteps that did not hesitate on marble. The butler's voice attempted formality, then fractured into uncertainty. A woman spoke in response, low, even, edged with iron, and the tone carried upward like a blade drawn slowly from a sheath. Elias went still. The door opened. She entered as if she owned the right to breathe in his space. Wet cloak, dark hair threaded with rain, cheeks kissed by cold, eyes bright with the kind of fury that did not burn out. It refined itself. She did not pause to admire the room or the duke or the cost of anything around her. Her gaze went straight to Maya, and something tightened across her mouth. Not softness, but a restraint so fierce it looked like pain. "Maya!" The child's posture wavered, only for a heartbeat, then hardened again. "Mother!" Elias watched the exchange with a sensation like being cut open and left standing. He knew that voice. He knew the way she held her chin when the world demanded she lower it. He knew the particular arrogance of her stillness, the refusal to be intimidated by wealth, by title, by history. She finally turned her eyes to him. For a moment, Everything in the room felt too sharp. The hiss of the fire, the scent of rain steaming from cloth, the faint tick of a clock measuring consequences. Elias's face remained carved from restraint, but the fracture in his composure widened, invisible to everyone except the woman who had once watched him lose control. "You," she said, and the single word carried years of exile, humiliation, and survival. Elias's voice came out controlled, almost gentle in its danger. "You brought her into the world and hid her from me." The woman stepped closer, not to him, but between him and Maya, as if her body were a shield. "I didn't hide," she replied. "I escaped." Elias's eyes darkened. "From what?" Her laugh was brief, bitter, and utterly fearless. "From your world, from men who smile while they crush, from a family crest stamped into threats." Maya glanced between them, absorbing every undertone like a child raised on caution. The woman, indomitable, unbowed, lifted her chin again. "If you think you can claim her because you recognized a piece of metal on your chest," she said, "you've learned nothing." Elias took a slow step forward. "And if you think you can walk into my house and speak to me like I am nothing," he murmured, "you never learned fear." Her eyes flashed. "No," she said. "I learned exactly what fear costs, and I paid it, so my daughter wouldn't have to." Elias's gloved hand tightened around the wax-sealed scrap in his pocket, the Ashbourne crest biting into his palm like a confession. "Someone with my name tried to take her tonight," he said. "Explain that." The woman's expression sharpened into something lethal. "Then you finally see it," she whispered. "They didn't only come for her, they came for me, years ago, and they used your shadow to do it." By the time the house settled into a strained quiet, the rain had thinned into a fine, persistent whisper against the windows. Less a storm now than a reminder that the night was not finished with them. Elias stood with the woman he had once loved like a sin and lost like a war, and the air between them felt charged, as if a single careless word could ignite years. She kept her body angled toward Maya, a protectiveness that did not beg for permission. Her eyes never softened in the way society demanded. If anything, the steadiness in them sharpened, an unspoken warning that she would not be dragged, not again, not for any man's pride. Elias opened his palm and revealed the scrap of paper, the red wax seal catching firelight with a dark gleam. The Ashbourne crest stared up at them, arrogant and undeniable. Her gaze flickered to it, and something ancient shifted in her face. Recognition without surprise. "You carry it like proof," she said quietly, "but it's only confirmation." "You knew," Elias replied. His voice remained controlled, yet beneath it ran a low violence, the kind bred by betrayal. "You knew someone from my bloodline would reach for her." "I knew they would reach for anything that could be used to break me," she answered. "Maya is not a child to them. She's a lever." Maya listened from the edge of the room, arms crossed, chin raised, as if she refused to be spoken about like a parcel. "I'm not anyone's lever," she said, and the words landed with a stubborn dignity that made the room feel smaller. Elias's gaze drifted to her, and the hardness in his expression shifted, only slightly, only for a breath, into something more complicated. "No," he said. "You're not." The woman's eyes narrowed at that, as if daring him to prove it. "Then don't make her a symbol," she warned. "Don't parade her to soothe your guilt. Don't wrap her in your title like a blanket and call it protection." Elias took a step closer, and the fire snapped softly as if it disapproved. "Protection is not a sentiment," he said. "It is a system, a fortress, and if my family crest is being used to hunt her, then my name is the only shield sharp enough to cut back." "You're talking about war," she murmured. "I am talking about survival." A silence stretched, thick with old memory and new danger. The scent of wet wool lingered on her cloak, the faint perfume beneath it, clean, bitter, floral. hooked itself into Elias's mind with cruel familiarity. He remembered her laughter once, bright and defiant. He remembered the day it stopped. "Who is it?" he asked. "Harrowmont." Her jaw tightened. "He was always hungry," she said. "But hunger has servants. He didn't act alone." Elias turned away for a moment, as if the room itself offended him. Beyond these walls, London's polite world waited with sharpened smiles, ready to feast on any fracture in a duke's armor. And tomorrow night, the season's grandest gathering would open its doors, a ballroom thick with silk, jewels, and venomous curiosity. He looked back at her. "Come with me." Her lips parted in disbelief, then curved into something that was not amusement. "To what?" she asked. "A public execution?" "To the only place where men like Harrowmont believe themselves untouchable," Elias said. "A place where they speak too freely because music is loud and consequences feel far away." "You want to bait him." "I want him to reveal himself." She stared at him for a long, measured moment, as if weighing whether the man before her was still capable of choosing anything other than control. Then she spoke, low and lethal. "If you use my daughter to provoke your enemies, I will destroy you before they can." Elias met her gaze without flinching. "And if you refuse," he said, "they will come again, this time smarter." Maya stepped forward, eyes bright, voice steady. "If you're going to fight," she said, "don't do it without me knowing. I'm tired of secrets." Elias's throat tightened around something he did not name. "Then tomorrow," he said softly, "the secrets end." Downstairs, a servant appeared with a sealed invitation on a silver tray. Fresh wax, crisp edges, the scent of paper and power. The ball, the stage, the trap. And somewhere in London, someone was already preparing to turn Maya's existence into a weapon, unless Elias reached the ballroom first and made the entire city watch him choose her. The next evening tasted of perfume and sharpened ambition. London's great house opened its doors to a tide of silk and jewels, to laughter trained to sound harmless, to greetings that slid like polished knives between ribs. Warm air carried notes of champagne, beeswax, and flowers forced into beauty by money. Everywhere, fabric sighed, satins brushing, taffeta whispering, like the entire room were conspiring to keep secrets moving. Duke Elias entered as if the crowd belonged to him by right of breath. His posture was the kind that made men straighten and women fall silent for a heartbeat, not from admiration alone, but from instinct. Beside him walked the woman the city had tried to erase. Chin lifted, gaze unbowed, wearing her defiance like a second skin. She did not seek approval. She did not apologize for existing. If anything, she looked at the glittering room as though it were the one that should be ashamed. Whispers rose immediately, swift and delighted. A forbidden name returned to fashionable mouths. A story long buried clawed toward daylight. Elias felt the attention like heat against his back, but his expression stayed carved from ice. He guided her through the room with a calm that was almost cruel, letting every curious eye register the same fact. She was not a rumor tonight. She was a presence, and he was not hiding her. Across the ballroom, Lord Harrowmont waited in his usual orbit of admirers, smiling too widely, holding his glass like a man born to be served. When he noticed Elias, the smile sharpened, becoming something practiced and predatory. His gaze lingered on the woman at Elias's side, then slid away as if she were a stain he expected to wipe off later. He approached with slow confidence, the way men did when they believed the world had already chosen them. "Your Grace," Harrowmont said, voice rich with false warmth. "How nostalgic. I had no idea you were sentimental." The woman's eyes met his, steady and merciless. "It isn't sentiment," she said. "It's consequence." Harrowmont's brows lifted as if amused by her audacity. "My dear, consequence is for people without protection." Elias held out the wax-sealed scrap between two gloved fingers. red against black, crest pressed into certainty. "Then you should be careful what you place your faith in," he murmured. Haramont's gaze flicked to the seal. The first crack appeared, tiny, fast, before he repaired it with laughter. "A seal," he said lightly. "Surely you didn't drag me into conversation to show me stationery." Elias did not smile. "No," he said. "I dragged you into conversation to watch you lie." The woman's voice cut in, low and clean. "Tell them," she said. "Tell them what you offered me when I was alone. Tell them what you threatened when I refused." Haramont's laughter faltered, then returned louder, the way a drowning man clings to noise. "You were always dramatic," he said to her, as if speaking to a lesser creature. "Always convinced the world was plotting against you." "It was," she replied, and the simplicity of it landed like a slap. A circle began to form, subtle at first. People drifting closer under the excuse of curiosity, eyes bright with hunger. The room's music continued, but it felt farther away, as if the ballroom itself leaned in to listen. Elias's gaze did not leave Haramont. "A child was taken yesterday," he said softly. "Men were paid. A seal was used. My family crest was pressed into an order." Haramont's lips tightened. "Careful," he warned, the warmth draining from his tone. "Accusations can be expensive." "Good," Elias said. "I can afford them." Haramont's eyes flashed. Anger, fear, both. And in that flash, he made the mistake Elias had been waiting for. His voice rose, sharp enough to cut through nearby laughter. "You think you can parade her here and rewrite history. You think you can claim what isn't yours and keep your title." Silence snapped into place, sudden and total around them. The woman's expression did not soften. "What isn't his?" she asked. Haramont realized. Too late. How many ears were now attached to faces that mattered? His composure wavered, then collapsed into something ugly. "An illegitimate child," he spat, and the word carried contempt like poison. "A mistake that should have stayed buried." Elias's eyes went deadly calm. "Say her name," he murmured. Haramont's jaw worked. "Maya," he said, bitterly, as if tasting ash. A breath moved through the circle, shock turning into certainty, certainty turning into delight. A scandal becoming real. Elias leaned closer, voice like winter. "Thank you," he said, "for confessing in public." Haramont's face blanched, then twisted. "Confessing," he hissed. "You don't understand. If you acknowledge her, if you make this official, you will lose everything. The council will strip you. The dukedom will not survive your honesty." Elias did not look away. For the first time all night, his mask of ice showed a fault line. Small, bright, unmistakable. Not weakness, decision. And in that moment, the ballroom understood something it had never seen before. A duke considering surrendering his crown for a child he had only just met. The scandal traveled faster than any carriage. By dawn, it had slipped beneath drawing room doors, climbed servant staircases, and reached the places where power lived behind polite curtains. London did not ask whether something was true. It asked only whether it was delicious. Elias returned home with the taste of the ballroom still bitter in his throat. Champagne sweetness masking rot. The woman walked beside him in silence, her spine straight as a challenge. Maya between them like a spark that might set the whole house ablaze. No one spoke on the ride. Words had become too expensive. At the townhouse, the warmth of the fire felt obscene. Elias went directly to his study, where ink and parchment waited like weapons laid neatly on velvet. His men stood by the walls, silent, as if sound itself might turn into evidence. A letter had arrived ahead of him, sealed in official wax, the kind that did not request but commanded. The council, the trustees, the men who believed bloodlines were architecture and that a duke was a pillar to be reinforced, not a man to be forgiven. Elias broke the seal with controlled fingers and read without blinking. The message was simple cruelty, dressed as etiquette. Acknowledge the child publicly, and the legitimacy of the dukedom would be challenged. Refuse, and the matter could be managed quietly, smothered, paid, erased. He set the letter down and felt the room tighten around him. For years, he had treated his title like a fortress. Now it was a cage with gold bars, and the lock was in someone else's hand. The woman watched him with an expression that refused pity. "This is what they are," she said, voice low. "They don't punish men for sins. They punish them for losing control." Maya leaned against the chair like she belonged there, eyes bright, mouth sharp. "If they can take your title," she said, "maybe it wasn't yours. Maybe it was theirs." Elias's gaze snapped to her. The audacity should have offended him. Instead, it landed somewhere raw. The woman stepped closer, not pleading, not softening. "I did not come here to beg," she said. "I came to collect my daughter and leave. If you want your pretty world intact, keep it. I've survived without your protection before." Elias's jaw tightened. "And you think you will survive when Harrowmont is already bold enough to use my crest to snatch her from an orphanage?" "I think I will burn whatever reaches for her," she replied, calm and merciless. "With or without you." Maya's voice cut in, steady as steel. "Stop talking like I'm luggage," she said. "I'm right here." Elias inhaled slowly, forcing his rage into shape. He reached into a drawer and drew out the Ashbourne brooch, placing it on the desk. In the firelight, it looked less like ornament and more like a brand. "My name can shield her," he said, and the words tasted like surrender. "But if I give her my name, I may lose everything that comes with it." The woman's eyes narrowed. "And if you lose your estates?" she asked. "Will you still stand in front of her when they come?" Elias did not answer quickly. His silence was not indecision. It was the sound of a man measuring the cost of honesty against the comfort of cowardice. Maya stepped closer to the desk and stared at the brooch. "My mother told me you were the kind of man who could ruin someone without touching them," she said quietly. "Prove her wrong." Elias's throat tightened around something that refused to be called emotion. He picked up his pen, the nib hovering above the paper where a formal recognition could be written, one signature that would rearrange a dynasty. Outside, the city breathed, waiting. Inside, Elias finally lowered the pen and began to write, each stroke a defiance, each letter a door closing on the life he had known, because the only thing more dangerous than scandal was a daughter who had learned to look at him and demand a soul. The ink dried like a sealed wound. Elias set the pen down with a precision that felt unnatural, as if his hand did not recognize the shape of surrender. The paper on his desk looked simple, one statement, one signature, yet it carried the weight of centuries, the sort of weight that crushed people quietly and then called it tradition. Maya watched him without blinking. The woman, still standing between daughter and duke as if her spine were a gate, did not move, did not soften, did not offer gratitude as payment for what should have been done long ago. Footsteps sounded in the corridor. Gray entered with the discreet urgency of a man delivering bad news wrapped in manners. He held another sealed document. This waxed darker, official in a way that made the air taste of iron. Elias broke it open and read. The words did not threaten him with scandal this time. They threatened her. A warrant, dressed in legal language and righteous outrage, accusations of fraud, of deception, of imposture, as if survival itself were a crime. It named the woman and offered the city an excuse to place chains on her wrists while calling it justice. Elias understood immediately. Harrowmont could not win in the ballroom, so he would win in the courts, where truth could be strangled with procedure. The woman's expression did not crack, but the muscles along her jaw tightened with old memory. "So he's finally stopped pretending to be civil," she murmured. Maya's eyes flashed. "He wants to take you," she said, voice low, dangerous, like I'm something he can pull apart. Elias stood. The movement was silent, yet the room shifted around it. He did not speak at once. He gathered himself the way a storm gathers pressure. Calm, inevitable, ruthless. "He will not touch her," Elias said. The woman lifted her chin. "He already has," she replied. "With ink, with whispers, with men in doorways." Elias's gaze met hers, steady, and something old passed between them. Regret without apology, desire without permission, and a new recognition forged in threat. They were on the same side, whether pride liked it or not. He took the warrant and held it over the flame until the edge blackened and curled. The paper did not vanish entirely. He did not intend to erase evidence. He intended to answer it. He let it burn just enough to make a point, then dropped it onto a tray where ash could be measured later. "Summon the magistrate who owes me," he told Gray, "and the one who hates me, especially him. I want both watching when Harrowmont's lies collapse." Gray inclined his head, already moving. Elias turned to Maya. The child stood too straight for her age, fury polishing her small frame into something unbreakable. "You wanted the secrets to end," he said quietly. Maya nodded once. "I want the truth to win." Elias reached for the Ashbourne brooch and pinned it where it belonged. Not on himself, not as armor, but in Maya's keeping. The metal caught the light, cold and certain. "Then you will stand where they can see you," he said. "Not as a mistake, not as a rumor, as my daughter." The woman's breath caught, only a fraction, and her eyes narrowed, as if daring him to make the words real beyond this room. "And me?" she asked. "What am I to you in their eyes?" Elias stepped closer, stopping within the space where they could feel each other's heat. "A woman they tried to erase," he said, "and failed." Outside, the fog pressed against the glass like a crowd longing for blood. Somewhere in the city, Harrowmont was already congratulating himself, already sharpening his next cruelty. Elias opened the study door as if opening a battlefield. "Let him come," he said. "London will learn what happens when a duke stops protecting a title and starts protecting a family."